So let's talk about the importance of easy miles, why we need to keep easy miles easy, what easy means, what it feels like, what it looks like, and then why that's so foundational to build upon going into a prep.
At its base, you've got to be able to just go through the act of running. And I know that sounds so stupid almost for me to say, but at the end of the day, you're running down the road. It's left, right, left, right, left, right, tens of thousands of steps in a marathon. We have to become what I referred to earlier as running adept. The only way to do that is to go run and to not overdo it. Listen, you can't let pride, you can't let ego creep in. To be honest with you, and this is where I'm just gonna be really, really blunt, okay? The average truck driver, the average a guy in your neighborhood out walking his dog, sees somebody out running down the road. They cannot eyeball you and tell whether or not you're running 11 minutes a mile or 9. And I'm here to tell you 2 minutes a mile is a vast difference. Most people can't look at it and tell. So do not go out your door and think that you're going to be any more or less impressive to anybody if you're running X pace or Y pace. So why don't you just take pride in the fact that you are doing it and just take it nice and easy. Don't overdo it to the degree that you feel exhausted, that you feel beat up all the time. And then the problem is when you feel like that, then it breeds sort of this loathing of the task of going out and running on a day-to-day basis. And so if you just take it nice and easy, you're not shortchanging yourself. You're becoming running adept, and you're not going to be more or less impressive to your neighbor who can't tell a damn bit of difference between what pace you're running and some other pace you're running. They can't tell. So just go nice and easy, man, because that is foundational for everything that you're going to be doing going in and running a marathon. At the end of the day, you got to be able to run in a straight line down the road and do it for lots of miles, many times over and over and over hours, days, weeks, and months, and eventually years.
Do you think the 80-20 principle is still a good ratio, that 80% of your runs should be these truly easy runs, and then the 20% should be your more intense critical velocity tempo threshold?
Right. The 80-20 rule is not a rule. It is something that has been popularized and is sort of morphed into sort of the culture of talking about running. But the 80-20 ratio is just generally pretty good. Can it be 70-30? Oh gosh, I guess maybe, especially for lower mileage runners, right? Can it be 85-15? Yes. The point is, the vast majority of the running that you do has to be really, really easy running. The 80-20 rule is not a rule that's necessarily grounded in any empiric science, which says if you're 81, if you're 81% or 79%, that's really not the point. The point is the vast majority needs to be easy. So yes, generally speaking, the 80-20 ratio, I don't really have to call it a rule because it's really not a rule, but the 80-20 ratio is generally a good standard to sort of use as a baseline ratio to make sure that you're not running too many of your miles hard.
Yeah.
And if you're going to err on one side or the other, let me add this, you're better off running more of your miles easy and less of your miles hard if you're going to make a mistake, although I would challenge that from a scientific sense as to whether or not it's truly a mistake. But you'd be better off going 85-15, right? Than going 75-25, if I had to say that.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Typically in a prep, when people are getting really beat down from a running prep, it's because they are running those easy runs too fast. Earlier, you mentioned the gray zone. The gray zone is the space between your easy runs and then your like true lactate threshold speed work. With that gray zone, you're not really getting the benefits of the adaptations from either. And if you stay in that gray zone too long, that's where people who are in a prep, they start getting chronically fatigued. They're always tired. They can't recover. They can't hit their hard workouts hard. It's because they're not truly running their easy runs easy. And I mean, I remember when I first heard, and this still like blows people's minds when you're told or you tell someone the way you run faster is actually by running easier. When you hear that, it doesn't make sense. But the truth is that all the adaptations that we're trying to gain and benefit from with running are done so in that zone 2 work. The adaptations of the biomechanics of the muscular system, the adaptations to the heart, to the lungs, to your body's ability to pump more blood in higher volume out of the heart, lowering your resting heart rate and your heart rate in general. You become more efficient. And the way we do that is by running more of our miles in this truly aerobic zone. Now, the question a lot of people are going to ask is, well, what is your aerobic zone? I think there's 2 ways to describe it. I mean, you can get really into the details of this, and some people do. But for general population, I would say if you can have a full conversation with someone next to you while you're running, that is an aerobic pace. That is an easy pace. I'm also a big fan of MAF 180, the Maffetone method. So you take 180, you subtract your age. That is the top end of your max aerobic heart rate. Now, a lot of people hear max aerobic heart rate and they think that's your max heart rate. No, it is the top end of being in your aerobic zone. So say, for example, you are 30 years old. 180 minus 30 is 150. Your heart rate shouldn't go above 150 beats per minute while you're on your easy runs to make sure you're in the right zone. Now, if it were me, I was 30 years old, I'd probably try to run 140 to 145 beats per minute to be safe. And I wouldn't trust my GPS watch. I would make sure I'm wearing an external heart rate monitor, either on my arm or around my chest. But the key takeaway here is majority of your miles should truly be done easy. And if you're running those easy miles too hard, you're not getting the adaptation or the benefit that you want or desire to actually get faster and build endurance.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I tell people, if you are able to speak in a full conversation, you're probably running easy, right? I also tell people they should almost be, and this sounds so counterintuitive, almost zero effort runs. In other words, you should be able sometimes to almost forget that you're running. If you're lost in thought, thinking about a problem at work or a conversation you had with somebody who's meaningful to you in your sphere, trying to figure out, hey, how do I navigate this? Or if you're talking to a buddy, right? You sort of get lost in it, right? I got lost in thought today, like you referred to earlier. I made it to 1.5 miles and realized I had forgot that I was running. People say, well, that's just so incredibly hard to believe. And I'm hearkening back to that. If you are in that space, then you're either running too hard or you have probably just started running to the point where you haven't gotten to that flow state yet in your running where it just becomes feeling natural. But yes, we've got to keep it easy. And what I tell people is you can spend a lot of time being married to your heart rate and looking at your watch. First of all, a lot of the heart rate monitors on the watches, when they're at your wrist, the smartwatches, the Garmin's, Coros, are not super, super accurate. They can be a guidepost, but don't let it sort of rule the day. Also, really enjoy the sensory data that comes from running. And if you just slow it down and look at some livestock that's in a pasture next to you, if you're running in a rural setting, or just enjoy looking at the homes or the lights at Christmas time, if you're running in an urban neighborhood, and just slow it down and just enjoy the sensory input and don't feel the need to press all the time. One of the things that is so great about the United States and has been for a long time is, generally speaking, people work incredibly hard. And so we have some principles I think that we live by societally that I think are really, really good, but don't necessarily help us a lot in the endurance space. We really, really glorify lots and lots of hard work and maybe not taking enough vacation time, enough time off. And so we hear things like burning the midnight oil, right? Especially by teachers and professors when we were in school. I believe in embracing the grind. I believe in some sense, trying to get 1% better every day, but not in the sense that I think a lot of people mean it. And so the problem is if you say, I want to get 1% better every day, and you apply that to your day-to-day running, then what that does is it makes you subconsciously press a little bit. Even though you're told that's not really the way it works, our subconscious, because of our sort of societal mores and the way we do things culturally here, which generally is pretty good for commerce, for growing businesses, and achieving great things, which is you just got to grind a little bit every day. Got to be careful with that with your running, because if you get into that gray zone, right, and your heart rate's too high and you're trying to press just a little bit, which is like, hey, for everybody else, they can just go and run easy every day, but you're going to look left and you're going to look right and you're going to go, but I'm different. I bet I'm different. I bet I can press just a little bit and get a little bit fitter today, and I'm going to get a jump on the competition, right? Now, listen, all you fans of the Oklahoma Sooners, I get that. Everybody jumped and went and stole land and all that, so that's why they're called the Sooners, right? But we don't need to try to get a jump on our competition by overrunning our easy runs thinking, well, that's for them, right? But for me, I'm going to cheat science, and I'm going to get just a little better today by doing sort of a quasi-tempo run that's harder than easy, but easier than hard. No, that's the point. If your run is harder than easy, but easier than hard, you actually aren't getting better. All you're doing is taking a wire and stripping all of the casing off of it. And what we know happens to a wire when you do that is you lose the strength of signal, right? The same things happens to us neurologically. If we strip, the casing off of our nerves, we just sort of get frayed neurologic impulses, and we get what we refer to as neuromuscular fatigue. And you cannot just go hard and go hard and go hard and expect for your body to hold up and expect you to get any progression. You've got to run easy. You've got to just invest in the science and short circuit the embrace the grind, burning the midnight oil stuff that we were told by our junior high basketball coach. You guys, you better run until you puke. And if you miss one practice, then that means every team in the neighboring town got better that day because they practiced and you didn't. Let's abandon that line of thinking when it comes to our easy runs. Let's not do that.
That's a really good visualization.
Yeah.
With the stripping of the wire. I really like that.
It's a real thing.
And this is very applicable for someone's first marathon prep. You might not experience this, but when people will go from prep to prep to prep to prep, and they build this fatigue, this neuromuscular fatigue chronically over time, sometimes in order to self-correct that and fix that, it's not something you solve by taking a week off. Sometimes it might take months to fix that level of just destruction and erosion of the neuromuscular component. It's a dangerous place.
And it's not just neuromuscular. I mean, it's adrenal fatigue, for a lot of men. It's precipitous declines in testosterone levels. There's a lot of science that goes into it, and we don't need to over-science this, but let's just say that adrenal fatigue, low testosterone, neurologic, just sort of fraying, just neurologic fatigue, it all just sort of sets in. Intense doses, consistent doses of cortisol get dumped into our system. Just a lot of the, for lack of a better way of putting it, the stuff that makes us tired, if we just literally cool the flames of stress that we have the ability to cool, such as the self-infliction of discomfort and fatigue by, quote, overdoing things, then we're going to avoid a whole lot of the pitfalls along the way.
Correct. So key takeaway, Keep those easy miles easy. Stay out of the gray zone.
And don't be embarrassed by it. And don't think that anybody's judging you. Wow, he doesn't look like he's running that fast. Guess what? Everybody's impressed by the fact that you're running down the street and they ain't. All right?
Yeah,
You're
true.
getting it done. Take pride in that.